Ma dayati mam iti swarjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamupashataha bahavo jnana tapasa putamad agataha. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many persons in prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanuvartante varta sarvashaha karmanam siddhim yajanta iha devataha shipram hi manas in fruitive activities, and therefore they worship the demigods. Artaram avyayam, according to the three modes of material nature and the work ascribed. And although I am the creator of this system, you should know that there is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the reactions of work. Evam guided souls in ancient times acted with this understanding and so attained liberation. Therefore, karmati kavayo pyatra mohitaha, created from all sins. Karmano hapi bodhavyam karmanashcha bodhavyam. Should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. Sabuddhiman manusheshu. Okay. Let's see. This is text 17. The intricacies of action are very serious about liberation from material bondage. One has to understand the distinctions between action, inaction, and perverted actions, because it is a very difficult. Knows that every living entity is the eternal servitor of the Lord, and that consequently one has to act in Krishna consciousness, and its attendant reactions are veiled. Even the most intelligent person. So we have in the lives of the previous acharyas, all activities in material life are more or less improper actions or in this world, even if they go under so-called, like we were hearing in the purport. The entire relationship with the Supreme, i.e., one who has learned perfectly knows that it's not optional, because this is the state of, it's the natural state of the living entity. Conclusions against this conclusion and its attendant reactions are prohibited. And then the action that is leading them toward serving the Supreme Personality is improper, even if it's in the mode of goodness and looks. So it's important that we learn to actually action and inaction, and Krishna is describing how we can do that properly, the way Krishna sees them. See, what's his opinion, what's his angle of vision on all of these different things. And that's important because we have conditioning. Each person, has a different type of illusion that is affecting them. So people come to Krishna's world, and certain things are going to disturb someone. And just like, okay, so we're born in this part of the world, so if we liked rap music, we hear the bass line for some song in that type of genre, and it's just like some annoying sound. But then they hear some of their type of music, and it affects them in a certain way. Or like other things, intoxication and all these things, and they smell like marijuana in the air, and then they're disturbed or they're attracted to it. Somewhere in India, not doing intoxication and these things, they're just like that's all into. So there's also, we should be aware of that. And there's a big philosophy is rampant throughout the whole world. He says that pretty much. So with that comes this idea of no distinction. Everything is one. So if you do something that's actually wrong, eventually you'll be Krishna conscious. It's okay. No matter what you do, it's all one. But we see these aren't. What are the lives of the acharyas? And we see they make distinctions. It was like Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur doing kirtans. Yes. Was he doing kirtans as a sannyasi surrounded by like a bunch of beautiful women? No. So we can see if there's someone doing these things, this isn't actually, we can make the distinction, that's not actually the proper activity for somebody engaging in spiritual life. Like for a sannyasi dancing on a stage with women all around him wouldn't make much sense. So by actually learning, the Bhagavad Gita, we can see how to actually discern and discriminate between what is favorable for devotional service and what's not favorable for devotional service. So we shouldn't cheat ourselves and be too eager to declare ourselves as a Paramahamsa or think that we're on the topmost platform. Like in Uttama Adhikari we were talking about earlier, he sees everyone's a devotee, every living entity is a devotee, and they're doing better service than me. But we shouldn't accidentally or somehow or other cheat ourselves and jump to this platform of thinking I'm a Paramahamsa, so whatever I do, it's okay, I'm transcendental. But are we actually so transcendental? Are we free from sex desire completely, not attracted in any way to if we see the opposite sex, or completely out of the bodily conception of life, whereas who I am as a soul and not the body? So these kind of distinctions are necessary. We have to actually distinguish between what's the right thing to do and what's the wrong thing to do while we're in this material world. And if we very quickly try to imitate a Paramahamsa or act like we're on this topmost platform of an Uttama Adhikari, then there will be a lot of problems and we'll fall down. So those are some points on that. And yeah, Srila Prabhupada said in the purport, any conclusions against Krishna consciousness are prohibited actions. So if something's not leading to pure devotional service, it's not awakening the living entity to their real life, it's a sinful activity. Because people, their real life is with Krishna, their real life is in serving Krishna and in being enjoyed by Krishna. So any activity that's tinged with untruth, that, okay, yes, you are the enjoyer and you're the center of it all. If it's tinged with these things, like material, we were talking about this morning, pure devotional service is anyabhilashita shunyam, gyanakarma dhanavritam, anukoyena krishna anu shilanam bhaktir uttama. It's the criterion for pure devotional service. There's no material desire. It's free from all of that. It's simply for Krishna's satisfaction, whether I get, and that's love, is that it's for the satisfaction of the other party. It's for the satisfaction of Krishna without any selfishness, any me or mine. We can see any activity in this material world, it has some selfishness in it, like Dr. Joseph and I were talking about at the plaza. Any activity, there's no, Prabhupada says, it makes it really clear, there's no love in this material world. Because whatever activity someone's doing, any so-called love in the material world is actually lust because it's connected with some selfishness. It's not free of all selfish desire. I do something for me, for my body, or for extensions of my false identity as the body. So like my son, or my family, or my nation. But at the end of the day, it's me and my that's getting like the benefit. Whereas, love, it means it's for the other party. So when one actually knows who they are as an eternal servant of Krishna, and everything that they do is meant for Krishna's enjoyment, then that they can act on the platform of real love. Just like a cell in the body, when it's serving when it's acting normally, it's a proper working cell. It works for just the satisfaction of the body. But if it acts independently, then it's called cancer, and it creates a big disease in the body. So the devotees, they asked Srila Prabhupada, what is love for the spiritual master? And Srila Prabhupada explained that you made your vow, you keep that vow, and that's love. So this is, pure devotional service. It's free from material desire, selfish desire, free from fruitive results, trying to get some type of fruitive thing. I get some fruit. And then free from speculation, mental speculation. So no one's concocting something, but they're serving Krishna as Krishna desires. And that's devotional service. So anything that's against these conclusions of pure devotional service is prohibited action. So we can see, even though there might be so many things that go on in the name of spiritual life, I'm so spiritual. Like we go to the music festivals to distribute books, and they say, like, I'm so spiritual. I do like this sound bath, and I've got this yoga thing, and I've got this and that and the other. But it's all just based on sense gratification. You do the sound bath so that you can, enjoy your ears or your mind or something like this. And then what do they do afterwards? They go and have illicit sex and take more drugs. They might take drugs in the sound bath, and then they do yoga for a better sex life. And then there was a philosophy class at one of these, and it was like the yoga of better sex life. That was the name of it, something like that. And it was actually really gross. I walked by it and I heard it for a second. It was really gross. I felt like even the people who are there to try to enjoy this, as this is their material enjoyment, I don't even think they were enjoying it, because it was really just nasty. I mean, the body is a gross thing. So if you really want to make a whole class talking about the body, it's going to be gross. So these things are prohibited actions. It's not helping one come to the platform that actually I'm not the enjoyer. The purpose of my life isn't meant to try to enjoy inert matter, but I'm meant to be enjoyed by Krishna, or give satisfaction to Krishna. So like many people will see the deity and they'll think, okay, here is God. Please, God, please appear before me and fulfill my material desires. Give me the A on the test, and the money, and protect my family, and all of these things. But again, it's against the principle of pure devotional service. So that's, of course, it's way better than an atheist or someone who doesn't believe in God. It's millions of times better. But the whole purpose of existence of every living entity is to engage in their eternal service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then they're fully satisfied. They're in their natural position. Okay. So things that get in the way of that are not actually favorable, especially if they go on in the name of devotional service. Like many people, we were talking about it in the car, they want to say, I want to hear the pastimes of the gopis and Krishna and his loving exchanges in Vrindavan, but they're not actually qualified to hear such things, and so they become more wrapped up in material activities. Because if Srila Prabhupada explains what is the qualification for hearing these intimate pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he says that one needs to be fully free from sex desire, from any tinge of sex desire. Otherwise, the tendency is that they'll become more lusty, because they'll hear these pastimes of Krishna and Srimati Radharani, and they'll take it as the activities of an ordinary boy and an ordinary girl, and they'll become more lusty, or they'll use it even to justify their own lusty activities. So even to speak on things that seem like they're very spiritual, like Krishna and his pastimes, if one isn't doing it in accordance with script, guru, sadhu, and shastra, and they're presenting some kind of bogus concoction like that, even without being free from material desires, you can understand the intimate pastimes of the Supreme Being, then this is sinful. It's against the principle of pure devotional service. It's not going to help a living entity. It helps them go to hell, because they're thinking, okay, Krishna, he's having fun with the girls, I can have fun with the girls, and they just commit more sinful activities and go on a quicker path to hell. Is there a comment? No? Okay. Yeah. Why do we know about them? Hmm. Yeah, the point is we don't indulge in hearing about them. Like Srila Prabhupada explained that there's all the drugs in the drug store, but it doesn't mean that you just go and pick up any one that you want. It has to be prescribed by the doctor. So like this, he said, everything is there in my books. He's given all of the uh, medicines to cure our material disease, but he's also prescribing how we should take them. And so he explains one should go through the Bhagavatam systematically from beginning to end. And one should be performing devotional service properly in the association of devotees and under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master and becoming purified through the process. But he wasn't, so that's there's the drugs in the drugstore, but they don't just choose whichever one. But also he wasn't satisfied when devotees just wanted to indulge in these topics, even within ISKCON. They started something called the Gopi Bhava Club, and they were speaking to him, and he was, I have it written, I just texted it in a WhatsApp today, what he was saying on this. Let's see. The leader of the Gopi Bhava, this isn't Hare Prabhu's Transcendental Diary. The leader of the Gopi Bhava Club tried to reassure him, Srila Prabhupada, that they were not attempting to imitate the gopis' love of Krishna. They were simply studying the descriptions so they could develop such desires. Prabhupada flushed, his top lip quivering. First deserve, then desire. There is no question of desire unless one is actually liberated. Until that point, you simply do whatever service you are given. So long as there is any pinch of material desire, there is no question of desiring the spiritual platform. He said the intimate Gopi Leelas were discussed by Lord Chaitanya only among his three most confidential associates, Swarup Damodar Ramananda Rai, Sikhi Mahiti. Siddha Deha is for liberated souls, no one else. Another member of the group said that they had thought it was all right because it was in Prabhupada's books, and they were only reading his books. Prabhupada told them that that's the example, that just because the drugstore has every type of drug, it does not mean that one can get them without prescription. The doctor prescribes according to the disease. He said that from the beginning stages of devotional service up to the highest rasas, everything is there in his books, but they are not all to be immediately studied. So he makes the point over and over again. He sets the qualification that if one wants to hear about these things, they should be very qualified. First deserve, then desire, but still unscrupulous persons will present misconceptions, and then the whole purpose of the Bhagavad Gita becomes very, very difficult to understand, and even the most intelligent person, as we read in the purport, will be bewildered because they present devotional service as a cheap thing. And they say, okay, even though you've been engaging in sinful activities your whole life, and maybe even are now, the best thing for you to do is to hear about the intimate pastimes of Krishna and the gopis, and look at these pictures of Krishna and the gopis engaging in these very intimate pastimes, and talk about what your sarup is in the spiritual world, how you're a milkmaid and this and that, and talk about all these high topics with your friends. This is what you should discuss. But we see what are the actions of such people. It's all nonsense. They're having all this close association with the opposite sex, and it's a totally bogus thing. They have festivals that don't look any different than these Karmi music festivals where everyone's hanging out, like rolling around on a mat together, giggling, like a guy who's about to take saffron and be a brahmachari. He's like hugging the women, and they're all close, and it's just a big sham. So these kind of things make it so that even the most intelligent person gets bewildered when they try to understand the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, which is to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead favorably, the way that he wants you to, free from these material desires. Okay. So, I mean, there's a lot that could be said on that, and there's so many examples, and there's so many things that probably need to be said on it, but there's just a few. Because the thing with this part of the Bhagavad Gita is there's actually so much to dive in here. Krishna is speaking transcendental knowledge in chapter 4. So it's interesting, we're hearing things that like we read in the first purport, In the Bhagavad Gita, you'll find things that are spoken of in other scriptures, but you'll also find things that aren't heard anywhere else. Why is that? Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who knows everything, he's disclosing this information about himself. So here we're getting transcendental knowledge, something beyond what we're actually able to perceive. It's really interesting. So I didn't want to just focus on one thing for too long, even though all these things that are mentioned in these purports are really important. Oh yeah, and one I made a little note that with all those things that we see, if I was to go into more examples of all these crazy things, that if people just take devotional service cheaply and then mislead others, an important point with all of that is that if that point that Prabhupada makes in the end of the purport, that even the most intelligent person can become bewildered. So if it could happen to so many people, even those who are seriously engaged in spiritual life, which it has happened to, then we know it can also happen to us. So it's important to actually understand what's the pure understanding from regularly hearing Prabhupada's books and following the regulative principles, chanting 16 rounds. And Srila Prabhupada explained, instead of thinking that there's actually just so much nectar on this topic. Instead of thinking that there's some higher thing, if we follow the process that he's laid out, and chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 regulative principles, we'll achieve the highest perfection. We can achieve the highest perfection in this lifetime. The most, because people want to say you can very cheaply get all these esoteric things, intimate association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and all. But we can achieve that highest type of platform of existence just by following the path that he's chalked out, this basic program that we're doing at the temple, chanting Hare Krishna, following the 4 regulative principles, and preaching Krishna consciousness. His emphasis was always on preaching, as we'll hear, but the emphasis is always on not running off to the forest or doing some kind of just bhajan, just worshiping the Lord and trying to understand Him just for myself, because the purpose is actually to have compassion on the living entities and to actually go to the fallen conditioned souls and preach. And in that way, we'll be safe. So if we do these things, follow the process he's given and preach Krishna consciousness, he's guaranteed that we'll go back home, back to Godhead. And Srila Prabhupada, as the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just like if you get a letter or the word from the secretary of the big guy that you want to meet, like the president, if the secretary says you'll meet him on this date, you just come at this time and do like this, you'll meet him, then you know that meeting is guaranteed, it's assured. So Srila Prabhupada has explained, we follow this process that he's laid out, that's also been chalked out by the previous acharyas, preach Krishna consciousness, and like this, we'll actually attain the highest perfection. Not that we need to look for some other, strange, goofy thing on how I'm like actually a gopi or whatever. So, and Prabhupada has so many nice quotes on it. Maybe I can read some of them because it's so fired up, it's crazy. Okay, yeah, here's a few. Yeah, that's there in the Bhagavatam, that by hearing the pastimes of the Lord, one is freed from lusty desires. Those specifically those Krishna with the gopis. But that's also for those, Prabhupada emphasizes the point over and over again, that it's for those who are qualified to hear. Because if they're qualified, and they're free from sex desire, and they're in the proper association, they can understand that actually I'm not the enjoyer, Krishna's the enjoyer, and they're getting purified. So Prabhupada doesn't say that we don't hear them at all, but he explains how we systematically actually go through all of his books. Not that we just jump to one thing and indulge in something that we're not ready for. And And then also like speak on it very, casually, like I'm going to give a public class and to people who've never even heard about like chanting Hare Krishna, or people who aren't even following the four regulative principles, and I'll speak all these intimate things of like, Krishna, like all these things. You're saying there were people who were engaging in sinful activities in the audience of Shukadev Goswami? Yeah, but even those impersonalists, they're beyond attachment for this material world. If they were there, I mean, I haven't heard this like justification for speaking Krishna's pastime with the gopis to sinful persons before, but if that was the fact, even people who are transcendentalists, jnanis, and personalists, they're already past any desire from this material world. That's why they just want to merge with Brahman. But we hear even the Bhagavatam is relished by those people. They don't want anything, but still when they hear about Krishna, they want Krishna. So those people were already beyond sex desire, sinful activities. Okay, Magadari Prabhu.
I appreciate all the devotees on this point, speaking about this. I've found that this point that you mentioned, Rishi, about systematic hearing, that's like a kind of really protective statement. It's like when it's my service to hear it, then I hear it, and when it's not my service to hear it, then I do my other service. So sometimes the systematic hearing, that's very important instruction, and when we take shelter of that, we'll be protected. So
Krishnendu is asking, how do we know what it's our service to hear? Did you have something?
Yeah, this is a really great question. That's exactly the question that everyone should ask. How do I know what service I'm supposed to do? That's exactly the question that we're supposed to have, and especially with the hearing. It's not just anything and everything or anything and anything. It's, let me go to the people who Krishna has placed in my life that are my spiritual guides and counselors, and let me ask what they think I should hear. And they will just give their opinion. And just as Prabhupada said in that letter that Rishi read, he says that until you're qualified, right, then you just do the next service you're given. So then that begs the question, or that emphasizes the value of having a team in devotional service. And that team has a hierarchy.
Sure. And then we know, okay, what is our service? What is like good for me to hear? GVC article. So the GVC are those who see that everything is going on nicely with. But I know it's usually harder to focus if we're just reading something rather than speaking. But I can read a little bit of it. In this regard, Srila Prabhupada always emphasized the basic program is nonetheless quite special. In Krishna consciousness, the means and the end are just a process that's laid out. But what if they want some special thing to do? So they said, the basic program is nonetheless basic program, becomes progressively manifest the more the quality of our engagement improves. The more we take pains to avoid offenses in chanting and broadcasting Krishna's message everywhere, the more we become eligible for higher development, sacrifice anything to please Krishna. Since Krishna is most pleased when his devotee is pleased, we should therefore work selflessly to please Krishna's dearmost. As Krishna and Srila Prabhupada are especially satisfied by preaching, we should preach I only wish for the happiness of Krishna, for his happiness is the goal of my life. Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya Lila. In the purport to this verse, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that the devotee does not care about his own happiness and distress. End quote. Srila Prabhupada sees the exemplification of this selflessness in the activity of preaching. Quote, sometimes the representatives of the Lord engage in preaching work meant getting very enthused because it's so fired up. Because what they were doing in this article is they were disputing these really bogus that people get where, okay, maybe, someone, if this so-called, guru who can teach you about the rasas flips the switch of bhava, then you'll just feel the current of bliss and ecstasy. This is all this stupid stuff. And then we see they want to follow, instead of Krishna's instructions, they want to follow their genitals. So they take shelter of somebody who encourages them to do that. Krishna to Arjuna. So when I was reading these, I was thinking, wow, these are like the perfect quotes to smash all this bogus. And these quotes really just smash this idea. This was exhibited by Lord Nityananda when he delivered the two fallen souls are very gladly suffered by the devotees in preaching, because such activities, although apparently very severe, becomes of the future of their lives. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.8.6. There are many examples in history of devotees of the Lord who risked their lives for spreading of God consciousness. Now we can imagine how mercy the highest degree, and he condemned with equal vehemence the Sahajya Babajis and others who denigrate preaching. For instance, all these Babajis they are, oh, I am not going out of Vrindavan, but he has got connection with so many women, so what is the use? Have you experience of this? He is attached to women and doing all sinful activities in Vrindavan. This is going on, manufacturing bidi, smoking bidi, in the dress of Rupa Goswami, loincloth, big tilak, kanti. And what is he doing? Bidi making. Have you seen? Prithu Putra. I have seen some of them doing this, Prabhupada. Not all of them, but they are also claiming they are on the stage of Rupa Goswami. We are preaching. We are lower stage. That's sarcasm. That is their opinion. We are preaching all over the world. We are in the lower stage. And because he has imitated the dress of Rupa Goswami, he is higher. This is going on. Conversation, January 28, 1977. Srila Prabhupada often cited the statement of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur that an Uttama Adhikari Vaishnava can be recognized by his ability to convert many fallen souls to Vaishnavism. So I'll just read this last one because I know we don't always just want to read the whole time in the class. Which makes sense. It's harder to focus sometimes on just reading rather than speaking. And when we do the class, it's an opportunity to speak. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that the position of a Vaishnava can be tested by how good a touchstone he is. That is, by how many Vaishnavas he has made during his life. A Vaishnava should be a touchstone so that he can convert others to Vaishnavism by his preaching, even though people may be fallen like the hunter. There are many so-called advanced devotees who sit in a secluded place for their personal benefit. They do not go out and preach and convert others into Vaishnavas, and therefore they certainly cannot be called Sparshamani, advanced devotees. So, yeah, they're making this point a lot to get rid of this idea that one can just sit down and do some very, very high meditation on what is their spiritual form and all these things in the spiritual world. And Srila Prabhupada said, you don't worry about that. You do devotional service, and by becoming purified over time, then your eternal position in the spiritual world becomes revealed automatically. That's the word that he used. Not that you have to go to some far out Babaji guy or some spiritual sound bath or whatever it is, and then see your form in the spiritual world. But actually by engaging in devotional service as it's given, as it is, then automatically it's revealed. What is one's position in the spiritual world? So, yeah, that was the point, that we shouldn't cheat ourselves and think I'm on the highest platform and then actually fall down to be the lowest, most degraded person. Like we read in the verse that Krishna explains, as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So as we take Krishna, he's taking us the same way. If we take him very cheaply, he'll take us very cheaply. If we think he's a debachi, we'll be a debachi. If we think God is just impersonal, we'll be impersonal. So similarly, if we take it very cheaply, Krishna and devotional service, then we'll be in a very cheap position. And we just see that, if we just see that, that's the easiest thing, rather than just philosophy and scripture and all these things, if we see the people who follow all these nonsense ideas, it's a very dangerous life, because it's more materialistic activities without any of what will actually save the living entities, which is pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord Krishna. Okay, that's all the time. It's like a super burning question. Oh no, like 1 to 10. Maybe can we talk about it another time? We ran out of time. So, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.